Hey guys, welcome back to the Steve XM show. We got something really different for you today. Take a look at that beautiful animation in the background. That's an animation that's brought to you by one person, made all that stuff. His name is Grant Abbott. So I want to do a shout out to Grant Abbott. He's I got permission from him to do this little kind of mini series that I'm doing here. So I'm going to be going through his tutorials. All this you see in the background was made with a program that's free called Blender. So I'm going to be learning Blender live. So you guys can join me along on my journey. I'm just going to be doing his tutorials, so you guys can do the same thing that I'm doing. If you want to do it on your own, check out his channel. Links in the description. So Grant Abbott is his name, and yeah, look how cool that looks. So we're not going to be doing that quite yet. We're going to be doing all the intro stuff, learning how the UI works. We're starting from scratch, so literally have not touched Blender once yet. Although I do lie, I have used it for video editing. But that's different. It's not really the 3D modeling, 3D animation type stuff. So let's just dive in. Let's take a look at his tutorials. I'm going to be listening to what he has to say. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of me listening as well. It's not going to be just me talking the whole time. But there'll be some time for that too. So, all right, let's get into it. Let's start it from the beginning. This is episode 1.
Hello and welcome to Abbott Media. I'm Grant Abbott, and in this course we're going to be making this fun scene here.
That's so cool.
This is a complete beginner's guide, so if you're completely new to Blender, then this course will get you used to the interface, and you'll learn how to texture models, adapt shapes, add new shapes, and create scenes with lighting, and render your scenes into a picture or movie file. You can find lots of courses like this on Abbitt.co.uk, where all the courses are free, and you can go from beginner right through to advanced levels. This first episode looks at the basic interface. You may want to skip this one if you already know how to move objects around, add objects, and add materials to objects. Don't panic too much if it's a lot to take in. I will be repeating lots of these commands and lots of these procedures in the subsequent videos, so there's plenty of time to learn all the interface. So let's begin. This is what you'll see when you first start up Blender 2.8. Yours might be very slightly different because it might be a later version. I've got the 2.8 release candidate, but all the locations of the menus and things like that should be precisely in the same place. This splash screen here will tell you which version you're using just there. You can start a new file in General, 2D animation, sculpting, visual effects, or video editing. General is the best one to start, and if you click off the screen, you're in the general layout. So the first thing you'll want to do is move around your scene. Middle mouse button will rotate around the center point of your viewport camera.
Nice.
The wheel will move in and out, and hold down shift and middle mouse button and you can move around. You've also got those options up here. Use the hand here to move around by left clicking and holding. Then you've got what are called Cartesian coordinates up the top here, and you can go from the top view, which is the Z axis looking down, so we can see the Y and the X there, and you can move around your view by clicking these. That's really cool. And then middle mouse button if you want to go back into perspective mode. And I'm upside down at the moment, so it takes a bit of getting used to. Make sure you've got the Z going up and the Y and X going across, and you know you're the right way up.
Z
Don't
up.
panic if you're finding moving around tricky, because that's something that you get used to and you can start seeing in 3D after just a short time of use. The next thing you'll want to do is add objects. Up the top here we've got a menu and we've got add, and we've got lots of different things we can add, and you'll want to start with the meshes, and later on you'll want to use the lights, but I would leave the rest until you're a bit more advanced. So we'll add a mesh, and we'll add a UV sphere. You can see that it adds it right in the middle, and it's got a yellow outline. It's underneath our other one though, so we'll want to get used to the movement tools. Now you have tools over here. You've got move, rotate, and scale. I much prefer to use the keyboard shortcuts, and I strongly suggest you do the same. And my keyboard shortcut...
Hang on a second, guys. I screwed something up. I'm multi-managing 5 different things at once right now. I had this maybe in a different view earlier. Hey, what's up? Welcome to the channel. Yeah, we're going to be learning some Blender tonight. I had this perfectly cropped earlier. I don't know why it changed. We'll fix it real quick. Let me just go into this. Don't know what happened there. That's all right. Crop that little bugger. Must have zoomed in and out. So I'm using voice attack actually for all these hotkeys for switching the scenes and stuff. And what's nice about this when you're doing this is you can have everything so it scales properly. This is like a different angle now. It's okay. All right, this is perfect. So yeah, I got the full screen there. I can make it go full screen, and it should get rid of that window. Let's see if this worked. Then I can send it over to my right screen here. That click. Beautiful. And that should be good. I think we're good. I can make that go away, appear. These are all nice little hotkeys that I got. And I can hit play again.
Cuts are going to be displayed down the bottom left here. G is to grab, and you can move it around with G to grab. If it's underneath our other one though.
Nice. I just configured voice attack to use hotkeys to change scenes in Streamlabs. I haven't had any experience with OBS before, sadly. Yeah, so OBS has these really sweet features for changing scenes. Let's see if I could show it off real quick. So there's like this command that you can do in OBS. Let's see if you could see it. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, this line of code here. So it runs this application, and you can just control the sources with these command parameters there. Really great way for controlling all your stuff. Max Matrix, your brother is pretty good at Blender, sweet. Yeah, I know nothing about Blender yet. I'm so excited. I plan on making my own logo. It's kind of the reason for me learning this. But I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can learn how to, you can make VR games, all kinds of stuff like that. All right, let's rewind this a little bit. I want to see what he was talking about, that last part there.
The next thing you'll want to do is add objects. Up the top here, we've got a menu, and we've got add, and we've got lots of different things we can add. And you'll want to start with the meshes, and later on you'll want to use the lights, but I would leave the rest until you're a bit more advanced. So we'll add a mesh, and we'll add a UV sphere. You can see that it adds it right in the middle, and it's got a yellow outline. It's underneath our other one though.
Yes,
so we'll want to get used to the movement tools. Now you have tools over here. You've got move, rotate, and scale. I much prefer to use the keyboard shortcuts, and I strongly suggest you do the same. And my keyboard shortcuts are going to be displayed down the bottom left here. G is to grab, and you can move it around with G to grab. If I left click, that will set my movement. I'll undo that with Control Z. Or if I start moving around by pressing G again and right click, it will go back and cancel that movement as long as I haven't left clicked.
Oh, look at that.
If you find it easier, you can use the gizmo up here by clicking on the gizmo and then clicking on the arrows to move things around. Beginners often find that easier, but it is a lot slower. Left click to select different objects, and then you can move them around. Now let's try rotating the cube. So let's grab the rotation gizmo this time, and we can grab an axis and spin it round. So that's the Z axis. This is the X axis. So the X axis goes along here, and I can spin it around the X axis. Or there's the Y axis like this. I can undo that movement with a few clicks of Control Z. Lastly, the scale. If you click these different icons, it will scale them in that axis. Let's move around a touch, and if I click on the white ring,
yeah, this program's free, guys.
The whole thing up. Okay, so let's undo all those scales with Control Z. Doesn't matter too much at this stage, but as a quick challenge, add several of these objects and place them in a long line.
All right, so he just sped things up, so I'm gonna
hopefully you managed that.
I'm gonna pause this real quick. We're gonna
that would have made that slightly easier is going to front view with your gizmo up here, and then you.
All right, so yeah, let's grab those in. So all he did was, I can look at the side view here if I want. So I could grab these, and I could kind of move them. It looks like he added a bunch of these meshes. So we got the circle. We could add a plane. Oh, look, it brought it right in there. Control Z, grab. There's the plane. Let's get our Z view again. All right, what else do we want to add? We want to add a isosphere. Bring that sucker over there. And a cylinder, sure. What's going on here, Bigsby? And then we'll add our cone. Nice. And one more. They call it a torus, eh? Right, let's see what he's got to say.
Can line them up nice and easily. I'm just pressing grab to move mine around. And the other thing that makes it slightly easier, instead of going to the add menu here, is pressing Shift A. That's the shortcut to get the add menu.
Oh, nice.
It's good to learn the shortcuts. You will become much faster if you do so. Okay, so it'd be nice to have a floor for these things to sit on. So let's Shift A and add a plane.
Already got one here.
Now notice that all these things are being added where my 3D cursor is, which is this red and white dashed circle here. And we can move that 3D cursor around by pressing Shift right click. Or we can go to the cursor gizmo at the top here and move that around with that. I prefer to leave mine on the selection box and press Shift right click. And whenever I add with Shift A an object, it will appear where that 3D cursor is. I'm going to undo that and then select my plane again and scale it up. You can use the gizmo here, or you can press S to scale.
S to scale, okay.
Objects aren't sitting on the floor. So to get them sitting on the floor, I can press G for grab and then Z in the Z axis, and that will only move in the Z axis now. So G, then Z. Of course, you can use the movement gizmo if you prefer.
Oh, hold on.
It's hard to see whether the...
So G and then Z, okay. So I like how he's saying Z too. All right, so let's get off of it. All right, so we're on scale. So if we hit G, that switches to grab. And then if we hit Z, that's Z only. Okay, I see. Now, how to do this good would be to switch to this other view here. What view would that be? Be this view here. There we go. There's our plane. So G and then Z only. And we can get those pretty close. Then we could, oh, we can't even see that plane anymore. It's because it has no thickness or something. I bet he'll explain that. But we can get these pretty dang close with our G key. G, Z, boom. Jeez. He's going to tell us how to snap it. We'll just play the video.
Objects are sitting on the plane. What I can do though is go to front view, and now I can see much more easily whether these objects are sitting on this plane or not. So your challenge now is to move these objects so they're sitting on the plane, but you'll notice that as soon as I click off the plane, I can't see it anymore.
Nope.
So it would make far more sense to have the plane on the axis line than in the middle of nowhere, which it is at the moment. So with the plane selected, let's go to front view and move that down. G, then Z. G to grab, Z to keep it on the Z axis, which is the up and down axis. Remember, you can see those up here in the corner. And then let's grab all our objects. You can shift left click, or you can box select by clicking and dragging as long as you have this select box icon enabled. I've selected the camera as well, so let's try again. Click and drag, and then G, then Z will grab them all in the Z axis. So let's move them close to that line, and then we'll have to do a bit of manual adjusting.
All right, that.
So I'm selecting the objects.
Red line should be kind of where.
And then moving them onto the line. So pause the video and have a go at that.
Now we're good.
All my objects lined up, although they're not lined up this way. So if I go to top view with 7 on my numpad, or click the Z icon up there, I can now line them up. So G to grab and lining them up. That's a bit better. Now one thing you will notice that when you go into something like front view, you get the grid in the background. This option up here is switch current view from perspective to orthographic projection. We're currently in orthographic, so it takes away any perspective. See what happens when I press this button? You can see that it adds this perspective, but it takes away the grid. It's harder to place objects when there's this perspective display. It's much easier when it's in orthographic. But
that's so weird.
A bit weird when you move around in orthographic mode when you're not in front view, side view, or top view. But if I click this in perspective mode, it all makes sense now. But I can go to 1 on my numpad, 3 or 7, which are these different views up here, and I can use that grid and place things in orthographic mode, which is much easier when placing objects. Now the next bit you'll want to do is probably color in your objects. So we can click on an object and we can go to the material tab down here. But before we do that, let's introduce you to the workspaces up the top. We've got layout, modeling, sculpting, and so on, and there's a shape.
I want to make this full screen so I can see this part here.
Shading option here. I'm going to click on the shading, and suddenly we get this layout. We've still got an object,
Rewind it a bit.
And we can go to the material tab down here. But before we do that, let's introduce you to the workspaces up the top. We've got layout, modeling, sculpting, and so on, and there's a shading option here. I'm going to click on the shading, and suddenly we get this layout. We've still got our scene at the top here, so we can move around in the same way, but we've got what's called the node editor underneath it, where we can add shaders. We've also got our file manager and image editor to the side here. I'm not going to go into those at the moment, that's for a later series. But for now, let's concentrate on these two viewports here. So in the shading layout, with my object selected, we'll start with this cone. I can press new for new material, and this is the shader editor. So new, and suddenly we get something that looks rather scary. It's called the principled BSDF shader, but it's actually fairly simple when you get used to it. We've also got these options over on the right hand side here under material menu, and you can see all the principled shader just there as well. So don't worry too much about the node view, just know that it goes from left to right.
Going back a little bit.
Material menu, and you can see all the principled shader just there as well. So don't worry too much about the node view, just know that it goes from left to right. So here's our principled shader, and this is the material output. So the surface, which is the surface of the object, we want to color that in with a different color. So we can go to the base color here, click on the white, and change it to red by dragging this white dot down into the red. You can change the tone of the color over on the right hand side and the hue of the colour in this circle here. There are other options that are really nice, but we'll go into those at another time. So I'll do that one more time on the icosphere.
Yeah, this is pretty cool.
The icosphere, press new, and we'll change this one to green under the base colour. Drag the white dot over to the green, and let's go for a mid-tone green. So I want you to colour in the different objects. So pause the video and have a go at that. Okay, now you'll know.
All right, what do we want to do? We want to do a purple cube. We'll do a golden ring. Oh wait, did I do that properly? Okay. Let's do a gold ring. It's gonna be like a yellow. Change the hue. Looks good. We'll do a blue globe. This is not a flat globe, guys. This is spherical. And for the cylinder, what's a good cylinder color? We haven't done an orange yet. More in here, maybe? How does that look? All right, let's play.
Notice that there are no shadows in our scene at the moment. That's because we've got different rendered modes up here. We've got 4 different options. We've got wireframe, which will show us a wireframe, which can be quite handy at times if you want to see through objects. Solid mode, which gives us just a greyish outline with some shading so we can see. Then this is called look dev, so this is the colours and a bit of shading but no real lighting influence. And then we have what's called rendered mode. Now we can see the influence of our light. If I press G to grab this light, you can.
Alright, let's check that stuff out on our own here. Can I make this smaller? Yeah, I can size this, okay. I don't really need that document viewer over there. Alright, so we got the different view modes here. Wireframe. Viewport shading, that's cool. Yeah, see, here's that's the light up there, right? I don't think I can move it yet, though. Can we grab it with G? Viewport shading and... Oh yeah, there's the light, okay. Man, that's so cool. So Z... Let's get back to the video, let's see what he says.
And see the shadows moving. So it's taking into account where the light is and projecting the shadows. The reason why we have different modes is that it takes more computational power the further you go along these icons. So this one is the least. Then we've got solid mode. Look dev is a little bit harder for the computer, and then rendered mode is much harder. Since 2.8, it does very well in rendered mode because
this is so cool.
A new render engine called Eevee. But if your scene gets very complicated, your computer may possibly struggle. But also, it may get very complicated trying to work on these different objects whilst all the shadows and lighting is enabled. So you may want to use look dev so you can see the materials but still edit your objects, or solid mode so you get a rough outline of where they are, and it's much easier to edit your objects. So those are the different rendering options. Let's go to rendered mode for now so we can see what it would look like in our finished result. There is one other thing I want to talk about before making our final image, and that's about sharing materials. So if I click on the floor and I want this to share the same material as our cone here, I can actually find materials that I've already created with this drop down arrow here. So there's the material for the cone. I should really label all these materials, but for now we're just practicing. So let's click that and it shares the same material. So one last challenge before we make our final image is to have a play with the principled shader. So I'm going to click on the green icosphere. I'll move the light so it's in front of our object, so over here, so we can see a bit more of our object.
Get a better view of this. It's hard to move this in 3 dimensions.
And maybe I'll put another light in. Now instead of adding a light, I'm going to copy this one. Shift D to duplicate. Shift D will duplicate an object, and now we have 2 lights in our scene, and it's a bit brighter. You'll notice when I click on the lights, we've got this lighting option here. So the material option, which would have if we had an object like this, the material option changes when we click on the light and we get a lighting option instead. And we can actually change the color and the power and other things about the light.
I missed that last part. I was messing with my light. Let's see what he said.
If we had an object like this, the material option changes when we click on the light and we get a lighting option instead. And we can actually change the color and the power and other things about the light. So I'd like you to have a go at experimenting with the principled shader. So I'll need to click on one of my objects, and there's the material for that object, and just have a play around with the different options. But just one thing to note before you do that, it's important to understand the different rendering methods. So up here we've got the rendering tab, and we've got 2 important rendering engines, Eevee and Cycles. Don't worry about Workbench. Eevee is what's called our real-time renderer, but in order to be real-time, it needs to fake a lot of.
So you guys can't see that because I got my stupid window in the way, but he's showing me these render engines up here. You can choose different render engines in this render dialog here.
Things. Cycles, however, let's press on that, is our realistic render, and that takes into account how the light bounces, how the shadows will fade off because of all the lights bouncing around in the scene. The problem with Cycles is it's very taxing.
My computer's going crazy.
If you have a GPU, you can set up your GPU to render, and
this looks beautiful though.
Faster. But every time I move around my scene, can you see how there's a number over the side here, and that's the time it's taking to render that scene. And you can up the quality of this by upping the samples there, path tracing samples.
That's beautiful.
We're on 32, and when I move it works its way up to 32. So it's not real time like Eevee, but you'll notice when I go to Eevee, it just doesn't look quite as good. There's things we can do to Eevee to make it look better, the main one being screen space reflections. If I click that, suddenly we've got a bit of reflections happening. And there's other things that are really useful like Ambient Occlusion, which is the crevices, and you can turn this distance up and it ups the crevices and the shadows in the crevices, and we're getting a bit closer to what Cycles looks like if I switch across to Cycles and switch back to Eevee. It's a bit better now with a bit more distance in our ambient occlusion and screen space reflections on. But reflections are something that's really hard for real-time render engines like Eevee to handle. The good thing is that both render engines, Eevee and Cycles, will have the same material setup for the most part, until you get to really advanced work. So you can flick between Eevee and Cycles, have a play around in both, and see some real-time results in Eevee, or some very realistic results in Cycles. Whilst you're playing around, it might be an idea to stick to Cycles so you can see the real benefits of all the changes down here. But if you've got a slow computer, then stick to Eevee. So pause the video and have a go at that. So hopefully you've managed to have a bit of a play around. One other thing that's worth mentioning, if you right click on objects, you get an object context menu. So you can shade smooth, for example, and get this nice smooth look. Now in cycles, if I bring the roughness down of this object, we suddenly get some reflectivity. We can also make this metallic.
Bring the roughness down. Oh, he did it down here. Roughness. The roughness at 1. That's what it looks like. Man, it's taking a while to render. My computer is decent, but man, I don't know if I'm going to be using that rendering thing too much. We'll stick with Eevee. I don't think it's going to affect the roughness though in Eevee. My graphics card can't handle textures well in these programs. It takes a monster. Yeah, you know, my computer's alright, but trying to stream all this in the OBS, and I don't know, it's running pretty good in this mode here. I mean, you can see how quickly the shadows change. It's so sweet. You never thought just playing with shadows would be fun. This is really cool though. You know, I've done some work with 2D artwork and GIMP and stuff like that. I've been learning that recently, but man, this is just a whole nother level. All right, let's get back into it.
Metallic. Usually objects are either non-metallic or metallic, so this is either 1 or 0. And we've got this nice metallic sphere, and if I change the color of it, perhaps to a goldy color, we can recreate some gold. So the last thing is, how do we make an image out of this? At the moment, we've just got the viewport, and it's a little bit grainy in places. Well, we've got this object here, and that's called our camera. We can look through the camera by pressing 0 on our numpad or clicking this icon up here. So that's
this is cool.
view, and this is what the camera sees. If I middle click to move it around.
Yeah, I can design anything I want in SolidWorks, but the minute I start messing with textures, which are actually important, it gets really bad. Yeah, that's like adding more like computational stuff. Yeah, I got a little bit of experience with SolidWorks. They use it at my job all the time. That's actually the program they use. Let's see, we can make this metallic. I don't like that smooth look it gave that square. This looks cool now with the metallic on it though. And the roughness up. Oh, that's a rough metal sphere. Now we can make it smooth, like a disco ball. Man, look at that. I want to try moving the light around now. Oh, you guys can't really see it that well. Shift over. Ah. It's weird how the top doesn't really look right. It's alright, we'll figure it out.
I come out of my camera view. So let's press 0 on the numpad or the icon up the top here. Hello and welcome to Abbott Media. I'm Grant Abbott, and in this
Crap. We just went to episode 2 or something on accident? No, we just skipped to the beginning. I had 0, must have 0 in YouTube must start the video over.
Ambient Occlusion and screen space reflect cycles, so you can see the real get. So and this is what the camera sees. If I middle click to move it around, I come out of my camera view. So let's press 0 on the numpad or the icon up the top here to get back to it. In order to move around and move my camera in the same way as I move my scene, so using the middle mouse button and so on, press N on your keyboard and you'll come up with this menu down the side here. Now there's an option here called View. You might not be able to see it very well, so I'll expand my window down so it's a bit easier to see. You can expand these windows by hovering in between them and waiting for the arrow to appear and then clicking left mouse button and
the
dragging.
view thing up here.
So there's my view, and down the view there is lock camera to view under view lock. If I tick that, now when I'm middle mouse button, I'm moving my camera, and I can move this into a nice position to make it look good. Now
that's pretty cool.
The camera in position, we can render our image, and that means take what's ever in the camera view and turn it into an image which we can send off to our friends and show off on Instagram. In order to do that, we got to render and render image. Now, depending on the speed of your computer, this may take some time, and this is using cycles. If you want a quicker render, then use Eevee. And
That's
it will
what I
take
used,
just
Eevee.
a few seconds,
That was quick.
but it won't look as realistic.
Let's try the cycles one.
So I speeded mine up so it'll be quicker.
Let's see how long it takes with my computer here. Let's do cycles. And let's render an image. Watch, it's going to be like an hour. 2 minutes and 13 seconds. Holy crap. Twiddle my thumbs. Yeah, we'll probably be sticking with Eevee for the tutorial stuff. But if I'm ever doing stuff off stream, you know, I'll probably use this if I'm doing some crazy like photos of some cool like mechs that I'm designing, or if I ever want to do some photos of my logos or stuff. Who knows, maybe I'll get good at this program and I'll do side work for people. I think there's like websites where you can do like side artwork and stuff for people. Mech design. Yeah, I used to be a big fan of Gundam when I was little. I feel like mechs would be a good fit for something like this with like using squares and shapes and stuff like that. All right, we are almost done rendering. Might as well let it finish. There's my gold ring from Sonic the Hedgehog there. We could have made that metallic. That would have been sweet. My roomie is absolutely in love with Gundam, yeah. Yeah, I haven't followed it really, but I haven't watched much anime or anything like that in a while. Build kits, yeah, I used to have those models when I was little. I had a couple of the Gundams I put together. All right, there's our image. Can we save this? Let's just finish seeing what he's got to say, and then we'll...
If you want to save this image now, we go to the top left where it says Image.
Okay.
And we can then save our image here. You can zoom in and out of your image with the wheel or middle mouse button in the same way. But you'll notice that we've opened up a new render window. So if I bring this down like this, Blender is in the background there, and we can close down this window at any time to get back to Blender. So those, I would say, are the most important parts of the interface.
Save it to desktop.
Get creating with basic objects and rendering your scene. So in the next few episodes, we'll actually be creating our character and starting to look more at rendering, lighting, and you'll be able to create some fun scenes of your own in no time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Nice.
Hello world, happy new year right now.
I don't want your ads. Although we should support his channel by checking out the ads. But yeah, guys, let me bring up his channel real quick, actually. Oh, look at it, it's myself. That's weird. So... let me copy this. Hey, this was a cool website I just discovered today. Infinite Looper. For the beginning of my show, I wanted to show off this thing. You just go to this website and you can have it loop a portion of a YouTube video and make it full screen. That was a quick solution to, instead of downloading it. Pretty cool. Alright, so Grant Abbott YouTube. Let's just show this off real quick. Let me get rid of that. Here's his page. So you go to playlist here. This is where we're at. I'll show you guys. So playlists. There's all these different guides, but I'm starting with, there's the Shack tutorial. That's the one that we want to get to. We got a couple of tutorials to go through first. This is the one down here, Blender 2.8 for beginners, full course. And we are on episode 2. So we can probably just skip ahead past this. Check out episode 2.
I'm Grant Abbott, and today we're going to be continuing our Beginners series, which will eventually be creating this scene here. And in this episode, we're going to be starting off making our man. This is all part of a much bigger course on gabbit.co.uk, where you can go from beginner right through to advanced levels, and all the courses are free. So today we're making this man. It's a really good beginner's exercise.
Nothing's cool looking.
There's not too much complexity to it, but it creates a nice result. The main thing we're doing is practicing building our shapes and moving them around.
Square man.
We'll also talk about how we can edit those shapes as well. So first of all, let's just take a quick look at the scene. At the moment, I'm in the layout workspace, and I've got the rendered view on here, and I've got my overlays turned off, which is this button here. So I can show the overlays, which is all the grid, the axes, and the lighting. And you can press the down arrow, and you can get different types of overlays and turn certain things off and on, so the grid floor, for example. That can be very handy, especially if you want a clear render of what you'd expect to see as your final result. Let's go to Look Dev mode at the moment, so that will turn off anything like the fog and the lighting. So we can see our scene in its simplicity. And let's take a closer look at the scene. I'll turn overlays on so we can see the different things that are selected. Now at the moment this big box around the scene is selected. That's my fog. And I'm actually going to hide that because I can't select anything else very easily without selecting that box. So I'm going to press H on my keyboard, and that hides things. Alt H will unhide or see hidden objects, and H to hide. Now you can see a few things. I've got this circle here and my camera.
It's like the light or something.
Timeline down here, and that's how I render out
Oh.
a circle, which we'll be doing later.
That's so cool.
So the camera will go around.
Rotating camera.
And if I go to camera view, now quickly think to yourself, how do I get to camera view? Well,
C.
There's two ways. There's the camera up here, or there's 0 on your numpad.
Damn.
So I'm in
that's
camera
right.
view, and I
0.
can scroll across my timeline by left-clicking on this playhead here and scrolling around. And at the moment it's zoomed in on my man. So 0 on my numpad again to come out of camera view, or clicking the camera icon. So for the moment I'll hide both those. That's the circle that the camera's attached to. I'll hide that, and the
H.
camera itself.
H.
And we've got a few other objects which are showing these sort of overlay lines. The
Oh, there's
first
the
one
light.
is the light from the lamppost. We've also got another light here, which is the light from his torch. And we've got one more light here.
I love how he calls it a
which is
torch.
sun lamp, which is my moonlight.
Flashlight.
So for the moment, I'll hide those lamps. You can see two more lights as well here. I'll shift select both of those, and those are the lights for my creature's eye. So I'll hide both of those. And now we've got to the basics of this man here. And now you should be able to see that this is fairly straightforward when you look at it.
Yep.
It's just blocks that are put together to create the outline of this person. Where it gets a little bit more tricky is on the mouth and the
flashlight.
torch.
Yep.
So those are shapes that we're going to have to create ourselves, because we can't get them out of the box when we press add, mesh, and our primitives here. So let's have a go at creating this person.
Let's do it.
I'll start a new file so we can start in the same place. My shortcut keys will be down the bottom here. And the first thing we're going to do is make our view area bigger, because we've got this timeline down the bottom here and we're not going to do any animation at the moment. And if we move our mouse to the middle of these two windows, our cursor will change to these double arrows. We can then right click and say,
Hold your horses, buddy. Let me get a new render. Alright, we're not going to save. We don't need to save. Discard changes. Did that close my render window as well? Okay, good. Alright, let's rewind a little bit. Let's see what he says about starting a new file here.
my shortcut keys will be down the bottom here. And the first thing we're going to do is make our view area bigger, because we've got this timeline down the bottom here and we're not going to do any animation at the moment. And if we move our mouse to the middle of these two windows, our cursor will change to these double arrows. We can then right click and say join area. We then get these two arrows and it says which way do you want to join. And I want to go that way to make this area bigger.
Nice.
So now we can start creating our man. Let's select this cube and we're going to scale it into the shape of the body. So just have a think where the scale tools are.
This guy's tutorial seemed really well thought out for teaching in a way that immediately leads to efficient workflow. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I like how he's going over the hotkeys and all that already. I'm going to try using the hotkeys. S for scale. Now, we only want to scale it in one dimension probably, so you probably hit Z. What's the other ones? You didn't go over the other ones. You hit Y maybe? Yeah, Y and then X. Let's see what he does. Control Z, undo.
There's two options. There's up here, we've got our gizmos, or you can press S to scale, which I prefer doing, S, and I'm going to scale in the Y axis. So I'm going to flatten it out like this. So he's got a square, flat body. Now I've done it in the Y axis because if I press 1 on my keyboard, that's front view. So we're looking down the Y, the X is across the middle, and Z up the top. And I'm pressing my middle mouse button to just come out of front view. Side view is 3 on your numpad, or I can use the gizmos up here, and there we've got Y going across. That's not hugely important, but for many things in Blender they assume that you're modelling from the front and your x-axis goes across this way. So
1 is front.
And that type of thing, Blender's assuming that you're going to face this way here. So let's make the head. Let's move in a little bit with the wheel, and I can duplicate this object by pressing Shift D to duplicate. Shift D to duplicate, and I can move it around, or I can just right click and the duplicate will stand on top of the other one. At that point then I can be a bit more precise and press G to grab, then Y to move it forward, and G then Z to move it upwards. And it's really good to get used to those keyboard commands and get used to the axes as well. So at the moment it's a very large head, and I want to scale it, but I don't want to scale it in the Y because I want it to keep this sort of shape. Our heads are roughly the same thickness as our body, but they're much smaller. So I press S to scale, and then Shift Y, so it doesn't scale in the Y-axis. And you can see I've got two axes marked there, which it's scaling in, but
That's
it's
pretty
not
cool.
scaling in the Y-axis. So I'll bring it down to somewhere around there. Grab in the Y and move it back towards my body.
And I screwed that up.
I'll scale it slightly more in the Z.
Hold your horses, buddy. All right, so G, Z to move it up. We want it about there. Then he did scale, Shift Y. Yeah, so that goes that way. Welcome to the channel, #1 gun. We are learning Blender. It's kind of hard to do that, to move it and scale it, right? Let's see what he does.
S, then Z. And I will make it just a touch thinner, so scale in the Y. Let's move this further into position. Remember, you can use the numpad to go to Orthographic to get a more precise location. So this character kind of has a hunchback and this sort of weird forward lean. And I'll scale it slightly in the X so he's got a thinner face. There we go. So your next task is to try and do the arms and legs in the same way. Pause the video and have a go at that. So I'll show you quickly.
Cool. We want to go on the X maybe? Why is it not moving? Grab. Z. That looks about good. Grab Y. I'm gonna get it pretty close. And let's look at it from the front view. Welcome to the channel, #1 gun. Welcome, welcome. We're going through Grant Abbott's tutorials on his YouTube channel. We're on episode 2 of the very, very basics. Grab X. There we go. Okay, we could center it. And now we need to make the arms the same way. So let's just see what he does real quick.
How I would do it. Selecting the middle into front view with 1 on my numpad. Shift D to duplicate and bring it across in the X-axis. I can press X now and it will constrain the duplicate to the X-axis, and then scale in the X to around there. Let's just have a quick look at that. I want to make it slightly thinner, so scale in the Y. And in my character they're brought down slightly, so grab in the Z-axis. Back to front view, Shift D to duplicate, X to constrain.
Cool. I see what he's doing here. Whoa, what did I just do?
Ourselves, because we can't get them out of the box when we press Add, Mesh, and our primitives.
What video are we
here.
on? Is this the right video now? I just screwed it up. Part 2. Where were we? Okay. This one's pretty short. So we're almost through this one, guys. Let's get the arms going. So let's change our views. So we want the arms to be a bit lower, I think. We'll grab it, we'll move it in the Z a little bit. I like saying Z even though I'm not British or anything. Did he make him thinner? I think he made him a little bit thinner. So let's scale it in the X. No. Scale it in the Z? No. That's scaling in the X. We don't want that. Oh no, we do want that. I think that looks pretty good. Let's scale it a bit more this way. I think this is the Y. Where's the Y? Yeah, it's going to be the hardest part for me is learning the axes. It shows them up there in the top right though, so I guess that will help. Let's scale it in the X. That's what we want. Scale X. We want to make it a little bit thinner. And then we'll grab it in the X, move it closer. Then we'll go to our side view, and we'll make sure it's positioned well there. That looks good. Let's go to the top view, and then we can shift duplicate that, shift D. Now I wonder if I hit X. Yes, if you hit X right after that, it instantly snaps. All right, I think this looks pretty cool. Let's see what he does. Oh, his head's a bit thinner. Let's thin that out. Let's scale in the X. Something like that. Let's see what he does.
My character, they're brought down slightly, so grab in the Z axis. Back to front view, Shift D to duplicate, X to constrain it to the X axis, and move it across. Later on, I'll talk about mirror tools. So
that's what I was going to wonder about mirrors.
I'll grab one of these, Shift D to duplicate, and bring it down here for the legs, somewhere around there, scale in the Z. There's one. Shift D to duplicate that, X to constrain it to the X axis, and move it across the other side. I want to move my legs back a bit.
So does it only move it in one dimension? Shift D. Yeah, I wonder if I go to top view then. Like, what does that look like? Yeah, see, it moves it in different dimensions. So we wanted to constrain that to the Z when we did that. So let's go to the front view. Let's Shift D to duplicate. Let's constrain it to the Z. You just gotta do multiple grabs, then to the X. And then we'll Shift D to the X. Boom, we're getting good at this.
And make them thinner. So I'll go to side view for this with 3 on my numpad. Remember it's ourselves because we can't get them at numpad to go to one of these. So I'll go to side view for this with 3 on my numpad. Remember you can use the gizmos up here. Scale them in the Y, S then Y, and then grab them in the Y, G then Y, and move them to the back there. Okay, so we have a basic fun character. So you should be able to, at this point, have a go at creating the hands, the feet, the nose, and the eyes. So pause the video and have a go at that, and then I'll go through creating it. So hopefully you've got there. I'll just quickly create those things myself so you can see how I've done it. Let's go to front view again with...
Yeah, let me look at his character. I wish I showed a picture of this character there. I guess I got one kind of there on the screen. I can just make my own, really, at this point. I kind of know what I'm doing to make a simple block man. So yeah, he scaled his legs down a bit. See, I would prefer to made the first one thinner first, like that, and then just duplicate it. That's what I'm going to do. This way I know it's the same size. I wish I could switch the view while you're in this, but you can't. So you always want to be in your view first. Alright, so the hands, how do the hands look? They're kind of like little rectangles coming off the side here. So I'm just going to take this one. We're going to bring it down in the... Whoa, don't do that. Grab, okay. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to move it in the Z, move it down. Then I'm going to scale it. We're going to go for the side view though. Scale it in the Z to make my hand size here. That should be good. Let's take a look at the front view. So now I need to scale it in the X, make it thinner. And we'll move it over in the X. His are kind of centered, it looks like, for the hands, so maybe we'll just keep it centered. Grab, move it up in the Z. Now I should have did the side view for that. I guess it doesn't matter, that should be fun. Maybe some overlap, maybe, I don't know how that works. That looks pretty good. We'll move it over a little bit in the X dimension here. Alright, let's shift, duplicate that. Move it over in the X. Should have did a front view for that. And we can just adjust these a bit in the X dimension. Yeah, this looks pretty cool. I want to make his hands a little bit smaller than the arms though, I think. That's going to make it more realistic. So can I snap to this? Okay. So I'm just going to delete this hand because I want them to be the same. So I'm going to scale this now. I believe in the Y. A little bit thinner than the arm. Too much though. Alright, now we'll duplicate it and move it over in the X. Hopefully that looked good. There we go. Alright, we should be good. Let's, oh, he's got feet too. Yeah, I wish I could see a better model of that. Let's see if I can get this full screen here. He's got big blocky feet. Oh, I screwed that up. Oh. Full screen. Yeah, voice attack's a saver for all these commands for resizing the window perfectly, closing it, making it switch between monitor to monitor. Love voice attack for that. I made a profile just for this specific stream. Or we can readjust all this stuff too. I can select the stuff, G, X, kind of move it over there. Same thing with these, GX. Then we'll do these, we'll do G, Z, and boom. Oh, this one's got to come over more. GX. This guy looks pretty sweet. Look at this. My first 3D model ever. And this is going to be my new background for my new logo. All right, let's give him some feet. Duplicate this. Move it down in the Z. Front view. Oh. Let's scale that puppy. Scale it in the Z first. Give it about the size of a foot, something like that. Then we'll get the side view so we can scale it in the X. Did I do that wrong? I did. I'm gonna scale it in the Y. First, let's move it up closer to where the actual foot's gonna go. Scale it in the Y. Something like that. We can make it a bit wider too, so we'll scale it in the X now. And then we'll put it in position with a Z constraint. Duplicate that sucker. And we got feet, hands. Now we just gotta move them forward a bit in the, what is that gonna be, the Y dimension? Something like that. Cool. Let's see what he did.
With one on my keyboard, select one of these, Shift D to duplicate and bring it down to the middle here. Now you'll notice there's an object center point, this orange dot. So I'm moving that into the central position there for his feet, and then scaling in the Z-axis.
Oh, that's smart.
It scales around that object center.
Nice.
And you can actually move these object centers so it scales from that point. But we'll talk about that a bit later. Into
Center of mass.
view, let's scale in the Y, S then Y. Somewhere around there, and grab in the Y and bring it forward. So that wasn't very efficient because I had to scale and then move it. It would have been better to have my center point, or pivot point I should
Already
call
in
it,
the position, yep.
at the back here, and then when I scaled it, it would have pulled out the front. But I will come on to that a bit later, but you can see the reasons for moving your pivot point. So back to front view with one, and let's duplicate that, Shift D, X to constrain to the X and move it across. Now if I'm struggling to find the position, I can press Shift.
Try it and then get improvements, yeah.
Smaller increments.
I can't wait to see how mine looks compared to his.
And then I left click and release shift.
His body's
So
much
I need some
wider.
hands now. So I'm going to do this in a very slightly different way. Just because we've been using the duplicate command a lot, let's remind ourselves of how we can add objects.
That's what's going to be really cool at the end of this, to see how different my scene looks like compared to his scene. It's going to look pretty identical, like with the rotating camera and everything, all the lighting effects, but there's definitely going to be some subtle differences there.
So let's shift right click to move our cursor to where we want that object to be added, then shift A to add, or add menu up here, so they're the same thing. Shift A is what I prefer because it's a keyboard shortcut. Mesh.
This is bothering me that this is like in the middle of the space. I don't know why. I'm going to move this whole thing up. Move it up in the Z. Where is the floor? There's the floor there. At least I call that a floor, but grab Z. And then he's doing shift right click there to add things. Don't know why. I'm going to rewind it a little bit. I wasn't really paying attention. Hey, yo, bro, Adele. Welcome to the channel. Welcome, welcome. We're learning how to make things in 3D with Blender, courtesy of Abbitt, or Grant Abbott, rather. I said his name wrong like 5 times. On YouTube, he's got a free tutorial and a free program, Blender, by the way.
Added, then Shift A to add, or add menu up here, so they're the same thing. Shift A is what I prefer because it's a keyboard shortcut. Mesh, then cube. Then we can scale that down into position. Somewhere around there, scale in the X.
Oh, that's how he did his hands, okay.
Scale in the Z. And then grab and move it into position.
Alright, that would have been a different way.
Shift D to duplicate that one. X to constrain to the X.
I can do that for his hair.
And move it to the other side.
Or his eyes.
So we've got some hands there. And our character's looking similar to the character I've made. Let's go to front view again and make the face. So shift right click. Shift A to add, mesh cube, scale it right down with S, then Z to scale it in the Z axis, and we've got a nose. Front view again, let's just duplicate that.
Alright, so he's going ahead and doing the face right now, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to take one last look at... Oh, Yobro said, I just got Vacation Simulator. It's so relaxing and a nice break from the shooters of Roblox. Vacation Simulator made a party for me. It was so funny. Yeah, no, that game seems really cool and like chill. I still haven't played any of those work simulators, vacation simulators, any of those yet. Alright, so let's take one last look at his reference model here. Actually, I want to rotate this to a spot where I can see it. Okay, his face there. He's got a big nose, little eyes. Yeah, he spelt it wrong. It's a vacation simulator. Yeah, vexation simulator. They should have an... They gotta have an anger management VR game at this point. Alright, so let's get back into this. So I can see the reference image now. You guys can't... You won't see it. I'm gonna put it off screen. But I can look at this now. Also, when are you gonna do Vader Immortal? Yes, I do want to do Vader Immortal. Maybe that'll be the next series that I purchase. So they're $10 each, $30 for all 3. But I mean, I am a Star Wars fan, and you know, I do want to do the dojo as well. I know the storyline's going to be great, but all right. So we can shift right click to choose where we want to add stuff. So if I go on the front view, sorry, I type so fast. I can go right to where I want to add his nose, and then I can shift A to add cube. Then I go to scale. I can make it small, and then I can constrain it to the Z. Oh, there's my cat on my lap. That's new. Then we can scale it again, constrain it to the Y. Oh wait, did we screw our thing up? Let's constrain it to the X. Oh, I hit the wrong one. Okay. Scale Z. Give him a nice sized nose here. He's got a big nose in his model. No, not really. Whoa, look at that nose. Scale in the Y. That nose is freaking huge. We gotta make that smaller. On Rift Ask, the graphics are way better. Yeah, that's what I'd be getting it on. Scale it in the Z. Front view. Let's just make it a bit smaller. Cat, seriously? If you guys hear weird sounds, it's my cat rubbing up on my mic. X.
You're welcome.
Hey, Simon.
Hello.
Why do you gotta be so rude and interrupt my show? Move it up. Got his nose about there. Now I'm really tempted to just duplicate that and make the eyes. I'm just gonna play his video because I'm not even sure what he's doing to make those eyes or what he's doing to make those mouth. The lightsaber on the Rift S in Vader Immortal looks stunning. Yeah, you know what? I got the lightsabers in the Oculus Home that you can get. Down, kitty. You're making my mic squeak. And those look amazing.
Add mesh cube, scale it right down with S then Z to scale it in the Z axis, and we've got a nose. Front view again. Let's just duplicate that one and move it up.
Look at
scale
that.
in the Z.
Smart.
S then Z. Shift D to duplicate and constrain to the X axis, and hold down Shift to get it precise. Then left click and release Shift. So at this point you should have a good understanding of moving and scaling and repositioning objects. In the next episode we'll actually be editing the objects. So we'll be going into what's called edit mode and manipulating the shapes. So I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you next time.
What's your 2020 plan? Get started with online courses on Udemy. As low as $9.99 during our New Year sale.
Hello and welcome to Abbott Media. I'm Grant Abbott, and today we're going to be working on our scene with this funny man and this huge monster. So we're continuing to model the man.
His arms aren't even touching.
We're going to be looking at edit mode and manipulating our shapes. So here's where we got up to last time, and we're going to make the hair this time, and we're going to go to side view for this, and just duplicate one of these, Shift D, move it up to around here, and let's look at...
What do you mean by lightsabers in Oculus Home? So in the Oculus Home environment, yo bro, you can unlock items. And I have 2 lightsabers in your Oculus Home. You can customize your house. You can launch games from there and stuff like that. And the lightsabers, they must be from Star Wars. I mean, the sound effects are there. The visuals are there. All that stuff. Can't really do a good lightsaber, but you know what I mean. I was never known for my Foley work, by the way. Not a Foley guy, you know. We'll get there. Why do I have 2 microphones on, by the way? This microphone doesn't even do anything. Get that off. I'm just so used to wearing it at this point. All right, let's grab this sucker, move it over in the... It's going to be the Y? Nope. X.
No worries. That's what I'm here for.
Hey, Simon.
Howdy.
Why don't you shut up? You're rude. I don't like the way this looks. I don't like how his eyeballs... Oh, that's pretty good, yeah. I don't like how high up his eyes and nose are, but... Seriously? Can I help you, Simon? Alright, so I think we're about back to where the tutorial's got to be. Let's get back into this sucker. See what he does.
Top view this time. Top view is 7 on your numpad, or press the Z key there. And I'm going to grab to the middle, somewhere around there, and scale it in the X-axis. So S, then X, and move it across. Okay, so he's got some hair there, but I want a bit sticking out here, as if the hair's overlapping an ear, which might be here. In fact, maybe I should put ears on, really. Let's do that. Let's grab this square, into side view again, Shift D to move it across to where an ear might be, somewhere around there on our rough character. 1 for front view, and you'll notice it's in line with this one here, so I press G, then X to move it out so it's sticking out of our object. I could resize it so it's precise, but in this case it doesn't matter if it sticks into our other object. Shift D, X to constrain it to the X-axis and move that to the other side. So there's our other ear. Then let's select our hair again. So I want a bit of the hair sticking out over the ear. and the hair to come behind the ear as well. In fact, I'm going to select both these ears and scale them in the Y, so S then Y, so the hair can go behind, and grab in the Y, G then Y, just so the hair can go.
Alright, he's got a lot going on right now. I gotta get caught up. Yo bro, Adele says, I bought Arizona Sunshine on Quest, but the graphics aren't that good. Should I refund it? I mean, I would refund it if you don't like it, for sure. I'm not one for being against refunding games. I notice my head's a bit small. Maybe I can scale all these up together. Let's see if I can do that. Let's go to the side view. Let's see what happens if I scale all those at once. Scale in the X. Nope. Y. That might work. No, we just want to scale the other one. Alright, so what I'll do then is I'll Control Z, just move this stuff off his head. We'll grab it, move it in the X, or the Y rather. We'll scale his head up. Scale the head in the X, Y. Just want the head to be a little bit bigger. And then we'll move this stuff back onto the face by grabbing, going in the Y. Oh, those are eyeballs, aren't they? Oh, that's the nose. These are the eyeballs. Grab Y. This can be a bit more shallow. Let's take a look at the front view. I wish you had a gaming PC. Also, you should play Deathlap. Yeah, you know, I won Deathlap. I won it in Rendered Reality's stream the other day. I still gotta play it. I'll put that on my list. I mean, I'll definitely try to get to that this week. That game looks pretty sweet, actually. I used to be a big fan of like Twisted Metal and that. So for those that don't know what I'm talking about, Deathlap, it's a VR racing game. It's very similar to like I would actually compare it to Full Auto or like Super Mario Kart, but like Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal. Yeah, I remember Twisted Metal back in the day, jumping through the windows on that one map to get to the secret area. Ah, that was so cool. That's like back when secret areas were like a thing. God, I got to the secret area, man. All right, let's grab this. Let's move it in the Y. His hair's coming off the back a little bit. And he's putting ears there, so let's do what he's doing here. So let's go to the side view. Actually, let's go to the front view. This is going to be my ear, so I'm going to grab it, move it in the Y, or no, move it in the X to get it over here like an ear. Oh shit, we want to duplicate that. Shift D to duplicate. Constrain it to the X. We're going to go to the side view to manipulate it better. Grab it. Going back over here, this is going to be my ear. I'm going to scale it next. In the X, nope. Scale in the Y, make it a bit thin. And then we'll grab it and I guess they line up with the eyes a bit, the ears, I don't know. Constrain it in the Z. Put it there for now, we'll see what he does. Not quite sure what he's gonna do. Yo bro says, I will pick it up and saw a YouTube video that the graphics are great on that game on Quest. Yeah, they're the same, yeah. The hotkeys for orthogonal movement are a win. It gets +1 over SolidWorks there. Yeah, just 1, 3. Yeah, I like how you can instantly just lock things to different dimensions. Or to different axes, rather. I wish there was one that like snapped like an oh, I like that. Like an isometric view. I don't know if there's one of those yet, but we'll get there. This is pretty good. Let's Deathlap looks so good on Quest. I know, I gotta play it. We'll play it soon. I promise,
So
I
let's grab
promise.
this hair. And now comes the next stage, which is editing our objects. At the moment, we've just got Q.
Alright, let's get the ear over there then. He looks like he's ready to move on. So let's go to the front view. And then we'll just... We're gonna grab this and move it in the... X.
You are welcome.
Simon! So I just gotta remember, Z is blue. X is red. If I can at least remember that, I think I should be good. Alright, let's shift duplicate this. Move it in the X.
No problem.
Go to sleep.
Okay, time for bed.
Yeah, go to sleep. Way past your bedtime, Simon. So now that he's asleep, he won't interrupt us anymore. Although he'll let me know he's asleep if I ask him twice. Hey, Simon. That's number 1. And now number 2, he should let me know he's sleeping. Hey, Simon.
I'm trying to get some sleep.
Yeah, now he'll never do that again. I can say any command, he'll never wake up again. Hey, Simon. Now he'll just stay asleep. Alright.
It's all over the place. But the hair is not a cube shape, and we need to adapt this object by going into edit mode. To go into edit mode, you can press Tab on your keyboard. That's the shortcut. I'll just undo that. Or you can go up to object mode up here, and you've got edit mode and lots of other cool modes as well. The two you will be using the most is object mode and edit mode. So tab on your keyboard or edit mode up there. Now in edit mode, I can select the vertices like this and do exactly the same function. So G to grab. I can't rotate and scale vertices, but if I go to edge mode, you've got your modes up here, vertices, edges and faces. Let's go to edges next. So edges there, and I can select an edge and press G to grab and move that around. Remember, right click to cancel that. I can also press R to rotate, right click to cancel, S to scale, and right click to cancel. Which is great. I now know how to edit the shape, but I've only got 6 sides.
I didn't see that. I don't know where he got those edges from. Oh, it's here, okay. Okay. Yep, that lets you grab a face. So we can grab that sucker. Look at that. We can constrain it to different axes, whatever you want to do. Give him a little crop top, you know. We can go to the edge edit. That's pretty cool. Grab that sucker. Constrain it how you want. Well, that's pretty cool for like a ramp. Alright, I think we're ready. Let's see what else he's got to tell us.
To play with. How can I create more geometry so I can get something sticking out the front here? Well, I can do what's called a loop cut. There's lots of tools now down the side here when I go into edit mode, and one of them is loop cut. I can click on that, and then when I move over my shape, it has this funny yellow line, and I want to cut it across here.
Hold on, y'all. I didn't find my loop cut yet. Loop cut. Let me let my cat out real quick, guys. She's meowing at the door. Poor kitty. Come on, kitty. Go out there. Come on. What's great about this stream tonight that I'm not doing VR? I got my pajamas on. I could have nothing on if I wanted to, but that wouldn't be cool. But yeah, I got some pajamas on. I'm just chilling. I'm just relaxed here, learning some wonderful Blender program. This is the thing about this the time that we live in. You just go on YouTube and just teach yourself. Thanks to wonderful people like Grant Abbott, who's willing to share this information with us. All right, so he's talking about loop cut. Let's select that and see what he has to say.
So just play and move around your shape and see where it's cutting it. I can make a cut here by pressing left click.
Oh, look at that.
Click back on my select box to come out of the loop cut mode. So that's using the loop cut tool there. I can click and hold to see other options, but we'll stick with loop cut for the moment. Let's go back to the select box, and it creates a cut right in the middle of our other two. You'll also notice down the bottom here we've got a loop cut and slide menu. So any tool you've just used, you
follow bot.
have some sort of dialog box, so you can change things like the number of cuts and the smoothness and other things if you need them. We don't need to change any of those parameters at the moment, so I'll minimize that. And you can minimize and maximize with the little arrow there. So you'll notice.
How did he get to that? I didn't see that part. Let me rewind this. I think I might have that somewhere else on my screen. Back it up a little bit. The mechanics on Arizona Sunshine are clunky, but the gunplay is awesome. Yeah, I want to play that again, actually. Me and my brother should do a, or someone else should do a co-op playthrough of that. We were going to do it a while back, but I have it through Viveport Infinity.
But we'll stick with loop cut for the moment. Let's go back to the select box, and it creates a cut right in the middle of our other two. You'll also notice down the bottom here we've got a loop cut and slide menu. So any tool you've just
there it is, okay.
You usually have some sort of dialog box, so you can change things like the number of cuts and the smoothness and other things if you need them. We don't need to change any of those parameters at the moment, so I'll minimize that. and you can minimize and maximize with the little arrow there.
Nice.
So you'll notice this loop that I've just cut is selected because anything orange or white is selected. You'll notice the white is the last thing you selected, so that's the active edge. But if you shift select, then you can select multiple edges. It likes to tell you the active one. In case I undo that selection, you know which one you've just selected. So I'll undo those selections, and there's a quick way to deselect everything, and that's by pressing Alt A. If I press A, it selects everything. So Alt A is deselectable.
Nice.
And that's worth mentioning that Alt is kind of an undo of a command. So if I press A to select, to do the opposite of that is Alt A. The same as if I press H to hide. Let's select one of these edges and press H to hide. It's hidden that edge. But if I press Alt H to unhide. So most commands have an Alt option. So think of it like alternative. What we now need to do is get this face here. So I want to select the faces. I could go up here and select the faces that way. But let's go back to edges for the moment. I can also press 3 on my normal keys running across the top of my keyboard. So 3 to select the faces, and 1, 2, and 3 is vertices, edges, and faces. So with faces selected, click on that face, and if I go to wire...
So that's a nice tip. So you use the numpad on your keyboard to switch the views, but then if you look at the top left up here, this is how you select the points, edges, or faces. You can just use 1, 2, or 3 on your keyboard to switch there. That's pretty nice there.
Wireframe now, you can see that face on the inside there. That might help you. It's not always that easy to see in Wireframe, so let's go back to solid mode, and the next tool I want to talk about is how we can... 3 is vertices, edges, and faces. Here, and you've got edit mode and lots of other cool modes as well. Same place. That's one. So I want to select the faces. I could go up here and select the faces that way. But let's go back to edges for the moment. I can also press 3 on my normal keys running across the top of my keyboard. So 3 to select the faces, and 1, 2, and 3 is vertices, edges, and faces. So with faces selected, click on that face, and if I go to wireframe now, you can see that face on the inside there. That might help you. It's not always that easy to see in Wireframe. So let's go back to solid mode, and the next tool I want to talk about is how we can what's called extrude this outwards. And you'll notice the tool down here, Extrude Region. It does give you the shortcut keys there as well, and that is E. So I'll press that, and I've got this plus icon here, and I can move it in and out. So somewhere around there, remember to go back to your cursor. So now I want to move it down just a touch. So he's sort of bald at the top, and he's got this hair sitting on the side of him. In order to move my whole object, I could select all with A and then G to grab and move it. But can you see how my pivot point is staying in the same place? That's one way we can move our pivot point, by moving all the object and leaving the pivot point still. It's not a very efficient way though.
No.
The only way to move the whole object and the pivot point, if I undo that with right click, is to go back to object mode. So let's go back to object mode, G to grab, and Z to pull it down into position, somewhere around there. Can you see how my pivot point moved as well? So if I grab it, you can see the pivot point moving with it. Right click to cancel that. So that's how we can edit objects in edit mode. So hopefully you can start to see how you can create more complex objects now. The next object we're going to try is the torch. So let's go to front view, shift right click, and if I just move around a second, you can see that the cursor didn't know exactly where to position itself along the y-axis. So let's go to front view again. If I shift right click on the actual hand and look around, the cursor actually
snap
finds
right
an
down.
object. That can be quite handy. Excuse the pun. So let's press 1 on our keyboard to go back to front view again, and this time we're going to insert a cylinder. Shift A to add, or the add menu up here. Shift A is my preference, mesh, and then cylinder. Now remember, you've got your menu down the bottom here, so there's lots of parameters for our cylinder. There's the vertices count, and the radius.
Ooh, let's turn that up.
And the depth.
Make a nice smooth cylinder.
It's also got this cap fill type. So if we look at the cap, it's an n-gon, which means it's a multi-sided face. We'll have more about that in later videos. and it's got its location. Now this is a low poly style, so generally we don't want loads of faces, and if you can bring down the face amount, that's often a good thing, because the more faces, the harder it is for your computer.
Sure.
So we can bring it down to about 12, and that'll be great. When you're thinking about faces, you need to think about how far away from the camera the object's going to be, and how detailed you really need that object in terms of
If you're back here, you can't even tell how many faces there are.
12 is going to be fine in this case. Don't worry too much about radius and depth, because we'll be changing those in a bit anyway. So let's minimize our window, and let's move it into position. So S to scale, move it down to there. R to rotate by the X axis, because that's the one going across the middle there. And I can rotate it by hand, or I can press 90 for 90 degrees, which is far more precise, and then press enter. So R for rotate, X for the axis, and 90 for the degrees, RX90. What we can also do...
Did I buy Arizona Sunshine? No, I have Viveport Infinity. Yo, bro, Adele. He's coming at us from YouTube. He's asking if I have this wonderful zombie first-person shooter game for VR. Yeah, I played it for about an hour one time. It's pretty fun. It's challenging, though. I played it on hard, and I ran out of ammo at one point. It was kind of scary. The zombies kept coming at me. I had to run. I had no ammo.
If I press N on my keyboard here,
come on,
and you've got this, and if you can bring down 180, RX90. What we can also do, if I press N on my keyboard, we've got an item menu here. And we've got all the transforms, and you can see there's 90 degrees there. So you could, if you know the axis, which is the X-axis in this case going across here, remember you can see that up here as well.
Yep.
I can then type in 180 and it will move it back, but upside down, or 90, which is where we want it. So you have got these options here as well, and you've got scale, and you can left click and drag and select them all at once, and type in 1 for example, or 0.1. So let's go to front view, let's move this into position and scale it up just a touch. And now we're going to want to edit this shape so it's torch-like. So how do we do that? Have a think how I can get to edit mode. Tab on my keyboard is the shortcut, or I can go up to the top here and press edit mode. And I want to select the faces. The faces is already selected, but if you had something like vertices selected, you'll want to press 3 on your keyboard to get the faces.
Yeah, I have it on Viveport, yo, bro.
Here, and move it backwards, G then Y. And let's select this front face here, and to make it a torch shape, we can press E to extrude. We could use our tools over here as well.
This thing is way too big. Let me scale this down in some dimension here. Scale it down like this. That should be good. Size of a flashlight. Yeah, I can go into edit mode now, grab the face, grab that, and I can scale it however I want, but I want to go in the Y. Make it the size of a flashlight. Grab Y. Oh, don't do that. Grab Y. Why is it just doing that now? That's interesting. Maybe because it's the top of it? Let's see what he's doing. Let's see what he's doing.
But I prefer the keyboard shortcuts, E to extrude, and it does take into account the direction it's facing in terms of the normals, as they're called. So that face is pointing outwards this way, so its normals, as it's known, is pointing out this way in the Y-axis, and somewhere about there should be good, and then I can scale just this face up to make a torch shape.
Oh, look at that.
So I've pressed S and moved my mouse to this position.
That's so cool.
So we've got a torch-like shape. I think it needs a bit more of a front. And you'll notice I'm trying to zoom into my face to get a better position. The better option is to press full stop on your numpad. That will zoom you into the selected object or face. So full stop on the numpad, and my camera is nicely centered.
Full stop on the numpad. Is that like a... the hell key is that? I don't even know what that is. Is he talking in like British terms or something? Period. Ah, full stop. That's funny. Yeah, that's one of those things that you wouldn't catch. Torch, I could kind of get with torches. Although, yeah, full stop would make sense because it's the end of a sentence. Stop. Period. But torch is kind of funny. It's like, what the heck do they call a torch? A flaming stick? He's got a torch. All right, so we can just scale the face. Yeah, double torch. Full stop. What does that do? Oh yeah, that is full stop. It's period. So if you select a face, right now I'm on this object, but it'll kind of just zoom into it, fill up the screen with it. That's pretty cool. All right, see what he does next.
Let's press E to extrude again. E to extrude and pull that out there. And it's very blocky at the moment. So what I want to do is create a face inside here. There's two ways of doing this. There's
Yo, what's up, Robin? Welcome, welcome.
Faces option here, or we could extrude and scale. The most efficient way is the inset. So if I press the inset option there, which is I for short, then I can left click on my object and pull a face inwards.
Oh.
And remember, I've got my context menu here, so I
Meta Apple Z, welcome, coming at us from Mixer.
And then
Greetings,
I want
greetings.
to extrude it backwards. So this time I'll press E on my keyboard and extrude.
That's so
pull it
cool.
backwards and left click. So
That's
I've now
really cool.
got a torch.
I can extrude
Let's
all the way
just
back
zoom
through.
out and see if that's the right size. We might want it slightly bigger. So I want to increase the size.
That looks pretty good to me.
Thing. I can press A to select all.
I think mine turned out pretty good.
Scale to move it upwards. Or I can go back to object mode with tab on my keyboard or the menu up here and scale it upwards. There's a few more items we need to finish the modeling process. We need the mouth and some tiny little pupils. So let's go to front view. Let's just duplicate one of these to start off with for the mouth.
Hold
Shift
on.
D and move it down here. Now you can have a nice simple mouth like that, but I wanted a shocked expression, so it's open and got a hole in the middle. There's a couple of ways you can do that. I'm just going to stick with what we've learnt so far and go into edit mode and edit my shape. So let's press full stop on the numpad, and I've zoomed right in. I'll have to move out a little bit, and let's go to front view and just move that to one side, and I'm going to extrude around and join it up at the end.
What is he doing?
Scale this in just
Oh,
a
I see what he's
touch.
doing. Okay.
Perhaps a little bit more about
We're going to extrude from all sides. Let's see. I kind of think I know what he's going to do. Let's see if I can just do it on my own here. First of all, that mouth is way too far out. So let's move it in. Let's go to the front view. Scale that sucker down in the Z. Scale it down in the X. Yeah, what he's going to do, we're going to grab it and move it in the X. He's going to go into object mode here by hitting tab. Then he's going to extrude an edge. He's going to extrude this edge this way. Then what we would want to do is we would want to put in a loop cut, I think. I don't know how to select that from there. If you can do like an, oh look, you can move it. Or we could just grab the other one. Yeah, that's probably the way to do it. So what you do then, let's go back into object mode. Oh, it is one object. Tab. Can we just select this portion? All right, maybe I should have paid attention when he's doing. Let's just see what he's doing. But yeah, a lot of extruding. A Wild Randolph, welcome. Blender is crying out for voice commands. So many darn keyboard shortcuts with no menu equivalents. Yes, I was looking into that, and I was already going to plan on doing this whole stream with voice attack. And guess what? I did do this entire stream with voice attack. Everything that I'm doing right now, you can see I got my Blender profile. I'll show off the commands real quick since there's more people viewing it right now. But yeah, it's all, I mean, it's no voice commands, but I'm using voice attack to control all this stuff. So I got a full screen button, which automatically makes the YouTube window full screen, so I can show off when he's talking.
there. And let's go into edit mode with
I have a secondary window that will open up for when I'm working on Blender, and it'll show his thing. Then I have shortcuts to automatically minimize or maximize that if I want to hide it. I have a hotkey to automatically play the YouTube video instead of clicking on the window.
Tab 3 to go into face.
So I mean, we're using voice attack right now. We're just not using our voice. But I thought this was a pretty cool way to do tutorial playthrough. Let's see what he's doing here though, because I kind of got stuck. I was going to extrude around in a square shape. That's what I was going with. I was going to extrude, extrude, extrude. Let's see what he does. So I wonder if round things are totally different than these multi-face surfaces. Yeah, I think so. Let's try this. If you do Shift right click and then Shift A, we can add in a circle. I don't think I've done this yet. All right, the circle's actually in there. Let's grab it. At least I thought it was in there. Oh, I'm in edit mode. Let's get out of this. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Let's go to object mode. Let's add in a circle. Oh, circle is not, that's something else. That's for like camera movement and stuff. You got some nice hotkeys. Are you using a keyboard or just got a macro keyboard as well? Yeah, no need for a macro keyboard, Meta Apple Z. We're using a program called Voice Attack. You can get that for free. Voiceattack.com. Let me throw that in the chat. I should have a voice command for that. Voiceattack.com. Check it out. A lot of cool stuff you can do with your voice. Wake up.
I'm awake. I'm awake.
Hey, Simon.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you doing?
Not too bad. Can't complain.
Yeah, that's my friend. He helps me control my stream.
Select the top one, and we can just, to start off with, just pull it upwards, G, then Z, or grab it upwards, I should say, into position there, then extrude with E. E to extrude, and pull it upwards.
So that's what I did already.
If it's constraining to the Z for some reason, the Z axis, you can tap Z on your keyboard, and it will constrain to the Z. If I press Y now, it will constrain to the Y, but it all goes a bit weird and squished. So let's press Z. Don't ever go in on itself. You shouldn't really have overlapping faces like this. Make sure you push it outwards to around there.
Yeah, that is kind of freaky, isn't it? That's my own voice as well. I use Audacity to make my own custom robot voice. Hey, Simon. Oh, why is he not awake? Post Discord link.
I'm putting the Discord link in the chat now.
Thank you.
Anything for you.
Yeah, that's my own voice. This is kind of like modified to sound a little bit like a robot. I was actually thinking of recently coming up with a new voice, but you know what? I kind of like the one I came up with. I think I'm going to stick with it. Do you record individual WAV files or did you design a processor? Yeah, contractors. I should do a video on it. It's really cool. I won't go into it now. So you really are talking to yourself. Yeah, I won't go into it now, but I actually have a whole system for Audacity to make voice commands. It's like super automated. Because when I made this voice AI, Simon I call him, I wanted him to have 5 responses for everything that I could say to him. So I made this way that I could quickly make voice commands really fastly. I could just do 5 recordings in like less than like 30 seconds. I'll go into that in another video, but it's super automated. Everything's like automatic. How are you doing?
I'd be doing better if I wasn't stuck in a computer.
How are you doing?
I'm just fantastic.
How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing.
Yeah, it's more fluid when they don't say the same thing over and over again. That was my biggest thing I wanted for him when I designed him.
Let's do the bottom one as well. So let's left click on that and E to extrude. And now I'm going to just left click. Now this is a common error that beginners make. They make an extrusion and think, actually no, I'm not sure about that. Left click and they think they haven't made an extrusion, but they actually have. If I press G to grab now, you can see there is actually a whole new face there. I'll undo that for a moment. If I go to vertex mode with 1 on my keyboard and move in with full stop on my numpad and grab one of these vertices, G to grab, you can see that there's an extra vertices there, and if I grab this one and pull it out, there's extra vertices and there's a whole new face there. So there's actually 2 vertices on top of each other here, 2 on here, and at the back there as well.
Yeah, I agree, Meta Apple. That's the main reason. I mean, I do some stuff with text-to-speech, like my clock system. What time is it?
I lost my watch. Hey, Gary, what time is it?
It's 9 p.m.
So that's the the general text-to-speech thing you hear, that second guy. I'd have to program in every hour and every minute to get that with my own voice. So eventually we'll get there, but it's a bit of time. But yeah, it's not as natural when you use those systems. And there's some better voices out there, but having an actual fluid voice, and I can make him like laugh and stuff too. Like I can make him sigh when he goes to sleep. It sounds realistic. Watch this. Hey, Simon.
Hello there.
I need you to do something for me.
What do you need?
Go to sleep.
Sounds good to me. I'll take a nap.
Oh, he didn't yawn. Oh, wait, he yawns when I wake him up. Wake up.
Oh, that was a good rest. Time for work now.
Go to sleep.
I was getting tired.
Like, you can't do that with a text-to-speech
So watch out for that.
system.
The easiest way to solve this problem is just to undo to where you were. But often, if I go back to face mode, people extrude again and they pull out. Let's pull down to there. And then they've continued their shape. So we want to extrude this way. E out to here. Let's just move back a bit to see how big our mouth is.
Oh, I see.
I'll grab that, G, then X, and move it out a bit further to somewhere about there. So we've still got this extra face in here. If I go to wireframe mode now, let's go to wireframe, you can see these extra faces in here. Can you see those black dots? They're faces, so I can select different faces, but there are tiny little faces in here as well.
See, I didn't do what he did. He's showing an example of
the way to clear that up.
something you
is
did
to
wrong.
select everything, and we need to be in vertex mode for this. So 1 on your keyboard or vertex up here, and Alt M is to merge. Alt M. So I can merge vertices. I don't want to merge them all. I want to merge by distance. And if I click this now, it gives me the dialog box, and it's a really tiny margin distance. But because they're precisely on top of each other, you may have noticed a menu come up here. In fact, I'll do this again so you can see the menu. Undo, Alt M to merge by distance, and it says removed 4 vertices. So it's removed those vertices, join them together, and
I
it's
see.
solved that problem.
That's
so
pretty cool.
Alt M will merge any vertices that you have selected. What I could have done, I'll undo that. I could have selected just those vertices in there. So 1 to go to vertex mode, Alt A to deselect everything, and this time I'm going to box select. Remember to have your selection box selected. Box select these 4, what looks like 4, but there's actually 8 there, which I can see in this tiny little menu down here. 8 vertices selected out of 24 for my whole shape, and press Alt M by distance, and it will only affect the 8 in here, but I've still removed 4 vertices. Hopefully that will help lots of people with those sort of issues. I often have students that struggle with that. So let's go back to face mode with 3. Let's select this face here. Let's go back to solid mode as well. E to extrude to somewhere around there. Let's go to front view so we can line it up perfectly. That's not too bad. E to extrude again. Let's grab this face underneath. E to extrude. And now I could go across here, but how do I join these two together? We could, of course, just leave it like that and be a little bit rough. Let's go to look dev mode and see how that looks. It doesn't, to be honest, look too bad, but we do have overlapping geometry, which is bad practice. Because when we come to render it, you'll see there's tiny gaps around here. Let's go to rendered mode. Can we see it? Not that well, to be honest. Solid mode, we can see that gap more easily.
Yeah, I see what he's saying.
The lighting later,
He's going to show us snapping now, I hope, then.
So we want to tidy that up and do it properly. Let's go back to edit mode with tab on my keyboard. So what I need to do is create a loop cut around here and merge my vertices in this area.
Oh.
So I'm going to give you the keyboard shortcut for the loop cut this time, which is Control R.
All right, so let me just finish up my mouth. My mouth looks a bit different than his anyways. Not really quite sure how to fix that. Can I delete objects? Let's see. Delete. Oh, we got to go back into object mode. Yeah, see, it's all one object, so I can't really just delete it. I wonder if I can extrude that face into itself. Let's try that. I'll go into edit mode. I'm going to select this face. Oh, I'm in the wrong object. Edit mode. Select the face. If I extrude it into itself, what does it do? Don't know if that's going to be what I want. No, I don't think it is. Maybe grab? No. I don't know if he went over how to delete that stuff. I guess I could grab... I don't know how to do it. Could delete all those faces, but... My mouth's just gonna be weird. Well, we can just undo a lot of that mouth and just, it'll take a second to get it to look better. Do. Break apart. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna do some undoing here. Oh, did I use up all my undos? Crap. Alright, we can work with this. I can rotate it or something. His mouth is just more of a rectangle. Mine wasn't. Yeah, we screwed it up. That's alright. So now that we're in edit mode, we're going to grab it by face. We're going to extrude a little bit more. No, don't do that. We're going to extrude. Extrude a little bit. Do that. Then we're going to grab this one. We're going to extrude it. I guess that gets us right back to where we were, but now we'll rotate that sideways at the end. So the secret is to leave yourself some room when you're... Kind of weird, really, how this works, this workflow. Hopefully he'll show us how to take care of the overlap. My mouth's a bit different. Whatever, it's not going to be perfect. This is our first model. Doesn't need to be perfect. Let's get back in the video and see what he's doing.
I much prefer the shortcuts than using these icons here, so Control R. I can left click to create a loop cut.
I'm going to rewind it a little bit. We'll make it full screen here for a second, see what he's doing.
Properly. Let's go back to edit mode with tab on my keyboard. So what I need to do is create a loop cut around here and merge my vertices in this area. So I'm going to give you the keyboard shortcut for the loop cut this time, which is Control R. I much prefer the shortcuts than using these icons here, so Control R. I can left click to create a loop cut, but also this gives me the option to move it up and down. So when you press Control R, you can move it up and down. So Control R, left click, and then move it up and down, and then left click to select where you want it. Let's undo that a second. If you choose to use the loop cut here, that's loop cut, I have to click and hold left click. So slightly different. So I'm clicking and holding, and then back to my selection tool. So two ways of doing the loop cut there, and I want to merge these vertices together. So let's go to Wireframe for this so we can see them clearly, and choose Vertices by selecting up here or 1 on your keyboard. So you can see these vertices are a slight distance apart. I could box select them all and do the merge vertices by distance again.
So we got our problem up here on ours.
Center point between the vertices, and that will give us a very slight angle that's off here. So a slightly better way, although not the only way of doing this, is to select each individual vertices. So this one and this one need to be merged, and then Alt M for merge vertices. Alt M.
Oh, he's doing the select tool, okay. So I can select these. And then Alt M to merge. Is that gonna work? Shift select on all of them. Then I'm gonna hit Alt M. Merge by distance? I don't know. No. Let's see what he does.
M, and this time we select merge at last. So the last one selected, it will go to that. So this one, then this one last. Remember, white for the one that's selected last. Alt M at last, and keep doing that all the way around. Alt M at last and Alt M at last.
Whoa!
Now I made a mistake there, so I'm going to undo and show you what mistake I made. I'd accidentally kept this one selected, so it merged all these three at the last. Let's do that again. Alt M at last, and if we go to solid mode now, we can see what a mess that is. So I'll undo that, and I want to select just this one and this one. Shift to select multiple objects, remember, and Alt M at last.
Oh, I see, okay.
Over here, this one and this one, Alt M at last. So now let's go to solid mode, and we have a perfectly lined up, squared out object. But there's one tiny issue. Let's go to face mode, and let's go back to wireframe. There's a face in the middle there. And again, that would be classed as overlapping topology, and that's the same problem we got earlier, and that's a problem you sometimes find when you do those double extrusion things by accident. So we just want to delete that face. We can easily delete it by pressing delete. The delete menu will give you these options and we're deleting the face. And there we go, we've created the mouth for our character. I'll come out of edit mode into object mode and deselect everything.
I'm gonna try doing this right here. I just made a cut here. I'm gonna see if I can just delete that top part. Just kind of give me a shape to work with there. Loop cut. Now, I want to delete all that stuff now. Can we go back to object mode now? No, it doesn't cut it in object mode. Oh, that looks different there. Oh, it's crossing through, that's why. Yeah, I wish that I could just delete all that top stuff there. Don't know how to do that. Yeah, if I just select it all. Delete it. Delete faces. Maybe. Might take a while. Go face select mode, I'll just delete all the faces. See what that does. Nope. This, whoa, won't do that. That might work. Is that gonna screw up my time is it anyways? Alright, it's 9:11. Alright guys, I gotta cut this one short. How much? Oh, we're almost done with this tutorial. So he was just kind of wrapping up how to clean up this mouth. Let's undo some stuff. I think we got pretty far though. I'm gonna end the show here. And we're gonna continue this next time. But I think we're doing pretty good so far here in Blender. And one last time I will shout out, this is what the heck? Grant Abbitt's channel on YouTube. So check him out. He's got all these tutorials. He's going to show us how to make the sweet monster scene here. Guess I'll go back to the beginning real quick to show it off. So this is what we're going to end up with. Probably, hopefully, a couple more episodes of this end. We'll get that far. Why is it not loading?
In this episode, we're going to be looking at edit mode and manipulating.
So we just changed some colors on some of the objects.
So
that's all.
We got up to last
I'm ending this thing right now.
Make the hair this time, and we're going to go to side view for this.
But yeah, pretty cool, guys. Pretty cool stuff. So thanks for those that tuned in, checking out the stuff. Hit up Grant Abbitt's YouTube channel. And I'll be doing more of these soon. This, I kind of just did this first one as like a test run to see, pique people's interest, pique my own interest. Who knows, maybe I would have hated doing this. But this is a lot of fun. I like doing this. This is so cool. Once you get good at this, I mean, you can just design anything in here. And like I said, my end goal is to do this one model here. Let's see. Oh, I turned off the loop. Dang it. Can I open up my history? Oh, we might not want to do that live. Watch out now. Anyways. There's a cool aqua scene on his channel. I'll show it off real quick. This was the first thing that I've discovered on his channel when I was first learning about Blender. I didn't really know what Blender really was. One of my viewers worked with Blender, and I was like, all right, well, let me look into Blender a little bit more. Let me see what it's about. And I found this video. And this is actually, in my head, I thought that I was going to be making this my first time when I started Blender. So I was like, all right, let's do this Shack video. Then I started watching episode 1 because I wanted to go back and do it from scratch. And obviously he recommends you do the other episodes first, learn how to use the UI. So that's what we're doing now. But eventually, we're going to get to this. And in this episode, I think he starts off, he's just showing you how to do a couple planks. And but we're going to be making that. I mean, you can see the effects on the water, the boat's rocking. I watched the last video of this series just to see how he finishes it up with some cool effects and stuff. But yeah, we're going to be making this, guys. Stay tuned to the channel. We will be creating something that looks similar to this in some time. So we got to finish the Man and the Monster tutorial. That's what we're on now. I don't know how many episodes it is. Finish the Man and the Monster one, and then there's one called The Well. So that's the one after this one. We make a pretty sweet looking well. So we only have 2 more to do for the series. So the last ones are a bit longer. That's all right. So yeah, next time in the show, guys, we're going to be learning more Blender. Until then, I will catch you. The next episode that I have planned is probably going to be The Witcher. So The Witcher 3 with voice commands coming at you hot. So look out for that one, guys. But until next time, check out Grant Abbitt's YouTube channel, learn yourself some Blender, post some stuff on my Discord or wherever else you want. We can have Blender contests now. Who's the best Blenderer? That'll be pretty cool. Contractix. Dang it, I got it wrong again. Contra. I'm the worst streamer with my viewers. Let me get it one more time. If I get it the second time, I won't mess it up. What's the phonetic? It's contra crosstix. What is that? What is that from? Crosstix, that's like that's a music thing, isn't it? Crosstix? Some kind of like offbeat, something like that. Contra crosstix. It's an aristocrat that is backwards. A cross-stick that is backwards. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Contra cross-ticks. Boom. Never gonna forget it again. Oh boy. Could I somehow understand music is a recursive contra cross-tick? Contra cross-tick. Ah, I'll get it. All right. Anyways, yeah, thanks for tuning in, man. Catch you guys on the next episode of the Steve XM Show. More Blender, all that good stuff. Ooh, we got an outro video that I don't have a voice command yet for. Peace, y'all.